Welcome. This is 30 Minutes of Truth for Life with Pastor Poole, pastor of the Bethesda Baptist Church located in Muskegon, Michigan. Join Bethesda each week on this station as we meet the challenge of change through Truth for Life. And now, Pastor Poole.
Verses of Romans 8, chapter 8, verses 12 through 17. So you don't see that we don't owe this old do-it-yourself life 1 red cent? There's nothing in it for us, nothing at all. The best thing to do is to give it to a decent burial and get on with your new life. Underscore new life. God's Spirit beckons. There are things to do and places to go. Keep that in mind as we reason together today. This resurrection life you receive from God is not a timid, grave-tending life. It's adventurously expectant, greeting God with a childlike, "What's next, Papa?" God's Spirit touches our spirits and confirms who we really are. We know who He is, and we know who we are, Father and children. And we know we are going to get what's coming to us, an unbelievable inheritance. We go through exactly what Christ goes through. If we go through the hard times with Him, then we're certainly going to go through the good times with Him. If we go through the hard times with Him, then we're certainly going to go through the good times with Him. Now in Romans, I hope everybody reads their devotions every week, and you'll be up to date. There was a man of the Pharisee sect, Nicodemus, a prominent leader among the Jews. Late one night, he visited Jesus and said, "Rabbi, we all know you're a teacher straight from God. No one could do all the God-pointing, God-revealing acts you do if God weren't on it." Jesus said, "You're absolutely right. Take it from me. Unless a person is born from above, it's not possible to see what I'm pointing to God's kingdom." "How can anyone," said Nicodemus, "be born who has already been born and grown up?" You can't re-enter your mother's womb and be born again. What are you saying with this born from above talk? Jesus said, "You're not listening. Let me say it again. Unless a person submits to his original creation, the wind hovering over the water creation, the invisible moving the visible, a baptism into a new life, it's not possible to enter God's kingdom." When you look at a baby, it's just that, a body you can look at and touch. But the person who takes shape within is formed by something you can't see and touch, the Spirit, and becomes a living spirit. So don't be so surprised when I tell you that you have to be born from above, out of this world, so to speak. You know well enough how the wind blows this way and that. You hear it rustling through the trees, but you have no idea where it comes from or where it's headed next. That's the way it is with everyone born from above by the wind of God, the Spirit of God. Nicodemus asked, "What do you mean by this? How does this happen?" Jesus said, "You're a respected teacher of Israel and you don't know these basics? Listen carefully. I am speaking sober truth to you. I speak only of what I know by experience. I give witness only to what I have seen with my eyes. There is nothing secondhand here, no hearsay. Yet, instead of facing the evidence and accepting it, you procrastinate with questions. If I tell you things that are plain as the hand before your face, and you don't believe me, what use is there in telling you of things you can't see? The things of God. No one has ever gone up into the presence of God except the one who came down from that presence, the Son of Man. In the same way that Moses lifted up the serpent, in the desert, so the people could have something to see and then believe it, it is necessary for the Son of Man to be lifted up. Everyone who looks up to him, trusting and expectant, will gain a real life eternal life. This is how much God loved the world. He gave his Son, his one and only Son. This is why, so that no one need be destroyed by believing in him. Anyone can have a whole and lasting life. God didn't go to all the trouble of sending his Son merely to point an accusing finger, telling the world how bad it was. He came to help, to put the world right again. Anyone who trusts in him is acquainted. Anyone who refuses to trust him has long since been under the death sentence without knowing it. And why? Because that person's failure to believe is the one-of-a-kind Son of God, and the one-of-the-kind Son of God who introduced it to him. Maybe I should read that last sentence again. Because of that person's failure to believe in the one-of-a-kind Son of God who introduced it to him. The one-of-a-kind Son of God who introduced it to him. The one-of-a-kind Son of God who introduced it to him. So I want to talk to you today, and it won't be off the cuff. But I want to reason with you for a few moments, if I may, about this whole idea of the spirit of sonship. So when we talk today about sonship, when we talk today about the spirit of sonship, then we're talking about not a discipline. We're talking about the way of life that God has chose for us to be his heirs, his sons and daughters who would inherit everything that the Father has for us. Am I a Christian? Oh, yes! I'm a Christian. Well, then let me throw this one out. And you have to go deep in yourself and ask the question, do I love everybody? Do I love everybody? For the spirit of sonship is to love everybody. Yeah. And the reason the spirit of sonship is to love everybody, because the Son has to be like the Father. Yeah. And the Father loves everybody. Yeah. So much so that he gave up his Son that all might have the right to live. Am I a Christian? Can I stand in this pulpit, sit in this pulpit, be exact and definite about everything that this word says? Yes, I can. But I can't do it arrogantly. I can't lift me up. I can't tell everybody, this is me. For a part of sonship is humility. If I'm a child of God, then I'm humble. I don't feel that I have any power. The first way that I know that I am his is that I'm bowed down. I recognize the authority. I recognize that he is my father. I recognize that he is the source of my everything. I recognize that I can't do anything. I'm humble. One of the terrible things of our day is that we need more people who are humble. 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 And to be humble, one must understand that one has to be obedient. Don't tell me you're humble if you're not obedient. Because to be obedient, you have to recognize authority. You have to recognize you are not the last word. Somebody other than you has a say-so that must be heard. And in the sonship, the spirit of sonship, when you're a son of God, then you wait to hear the call of God to be humble and obedient to what God is calling you to do. You can't do it otherwise. And when we're humble and obedient, we have great expectation. Because the Lord has promised something to us. My Father has promised things to me. If you will bow down and recognize me as your God, this is what I'll do. That's why Israel got in trouble. Because they ceased to recognize God as their God. Spirit of sonship or daughtership is to recognize God as your Father. And you have great expectation. If God is my Father, I can trust him. Amen. I don't need to worry whether there's going to be any money in the bank. He's my Father. He wouldn't send me to the bank to collect if there was nothing there. I can trust him. When he says, I'll bless you, and then he gives me a prescription for my blessing, I can fill the prescription because I know that I'm going to be blessed. Yes. Sonship is faith. Faith in what God does that I come to experience through my obedience and my trust in him. If I'm obedient and trust him and have the expectation, go and get what he says is there for me. If I walk there in faith and work there in faith and do things in faith, then I realize it. I'm not going around looking for some ghost. I'm not going around looking for some luck. I'm not wearing something that is designed to make me believe that because I'm wearing it, something good is going to happen to me. I'm going to believe God is my Father. I'm not looking for something special to happen somewhere. That's not the way that God works with us. If we're the children of God, we act like the children of God through the behavior that he makes possible through our humility and our obedience and our faith and our expectation of what he does for his children. So, if we're talking about the spirit of sonship, let us who are present here recognize that we don't need to be praying for some strange object to come and all of a sudden wave over us something external that's going to all of a sudden bind us and make us do things that we have not done in the past. For the spirit of sonship is in the nature of who we are. That's why in John, when we look at Nicodemus being born of the Spirit, we must be born of the Spirit that God gives. Yes. That's why when the illustration is given of the baby, you see a form. But what goes in the form is something else. That comes from God. That doesn't come from the things that are around. That comes from God. We love not because we are selfish. We love because we are God-like. We surrender not because we are cowards. We surrender because we know about God's loving us and how through his loving us, he suffered. And if we are to understand the power of love, we know that we too must suffer. Yes. We know that there is no gain without struggle. That we are not there by simply being in a place where an aroma comes and someone says the presence is here. The presence of God is in our lives and how we choose his word to guide our way of living. Jesus Christ presented the spirit of sonship. Nowhere you look at the life of Jesus where you do not find the spirit of sonship. Back before there was a wind and a where, there is the saying that they all met together. And the father asked the question, who will go for us? And the son said, here am I will go. Humble, obedient, trusting, expecting, faith in the Father. And that same sonship he transfers to us through example. When called upon to do other than God wanted him to do, he said to the evil one, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God. When someone said, show who you are, show that in man there is selfishness, save yourself, his acts proved that he did not come to save himself. He came to save mankind. So he hung there on the cross to which he was nailed. He hung there on the cross where they had crowned him, thinking that they were making a spectacle of him. He hung there until the moment he cried out, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." He had faith in what he had come to do, and knew that God the Father would carry it through to the end. Do I know I'm a Christian? I believe I am, but I'm still in the test. I believe I'm saved. And because I believe I'm saved, I know what my end is going to be. But the test is going to be in the end. When he calls me before his throne with everybody else, and I stand there naked, and he reads my ledger to remind of what I've done. Am I a Christian? I believe I am. Because I believe when the end comes and the resurrection is present, when the trumpet sounds and I stand before him, when my ledger is read, I believe he's going to say, "Well done. Well done. Well done. What, my good and faithful servant? Enter into the place prepared for you from the foundation of the world." The spirit of sonship is making sure that you walk like your daddy. Amen. And that you let nothing or nobody make you shame that you do. Amen. Yes. Don't let anybody throw you off track. Yes. Talking about you giving too much. Yes. You're there too often. Yes. Those people don't mean you any good. All right. God always means you good. Yes. He wants good for your life. It doesn't matter what A, B, or C does. It's the kind of relationship you have with God. Let others march to hell if they wish. But you stay on the main line. Stay on the track that the Lord has given you. And in the end, you'll be able to join with all who know him as their Lord. You'll be able to sing, cry, "Holy, holy, holy!" For God reigns and no other.